The Packers Fan Hall of Fame finalists are in. Voting for those finalists is now open. You can go to packers.com/fans, and you'll find the way to vote at packers.com. Go and read everyone's story. Vote for who you think is the most deserving. Now, one person on the finalist list is John Brosig from Pound, Wisconsin. John, monster Packers fan. And his submission was put in by his family. And we've got on the phone right now Max Brosig. Max, good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, good morning, guys. Thanks for having me on. Really appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely. So your dad is up for the Packer Fan Hall of Fame. When did John's obsession with the Packers begin?
Probably for him, it started at the first time he heard a game on the radio, sitting around with his dad or his uncles. But, it really came really crazy, in the late 50s, early 60s when he started going to games. He would tell me about how they would sneak in, and his brother knew a guy who ran the gate, and they would get in. Then he got his season tickets in '64, and this was his 60th year, not missing a home game with his season ticket package, and just a diehard.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like his love for the Packers was pretty much larger than life. And reading through the submission that your family put up for John, I see that he pretty much planned his entire 12-month calendar around what the Packers were going to be doing.
That is correct. Before certain plans of big family events were made, you had to wait until the Packers schedule came out. It wasn't too concerned about preseason, although later he started getting more involved in that. But whether it was a birthday party, a wedding, an anniversary, any major event, he would say, well, just not plan it yet because we got to see the schedule. And then he would even ask fellow family members to move events based on when the Packers were playing.
Well, how many weddings and birthday parties had to be rescheduled because of his obsession with the team?
I think there were a lot. And I think people didn't want to disappoint him. He was Uncle John, right? So, his influence in the family was so good. He was a brother and he was a grandfather and an uncle to so many people that nobody wanted to disappoint him. So they would figure out a way to move stuff.
Talking about the Packers Fan Hall of Fame finalists, they are in. The voting for those finalists is now open. Go to packers.com, read about all the finalists there. Vote for whoever you think is most deserving. We're speaking specifically about the entry for John Brosig from Pound, Wisconsin, talking to Max about his dad, John. Now, he had seen a lot of good football, a lot of bad football along the way. Was John the type of guy who was very critical of the team, like get rid of this coach, get rid of this player, what the hell is this franchise doing? Or was he always kind of a positive outlook type of a fan?
That's a great question. He was always positive. He never got down on the coaches or the players. He might make a comment here or there, but he'd always like, oh, hey, have faith. They'll figure it out. They'll figure it out. Especially like back in the 70s and early 80s when they were having some rough times. He never was negative about the Packers that I can ever remember.
Now, when you talk to diehard Packers fans, it's amazing that every single one of them attended the Ice Bowl game, but your dad was actually at the Ice Bowl game. What stories did he tell about that?
Well, obviously, he always talked about how back in the day, how everybody dressed up and went to the games, and you didn't have the types of clothes, that we have now. And of course it was cold. And he said everybody was, dressed to the nines and we were cold, but, everyone was very positive, having a good time. And then, obviously, they won and the fans stormed the field and all that. And somehow he was able to get one of the team benches that we still have, my mom has up at the house yet. So.
Now, Max, tailgating at Packers games, legendary, obviously. And I learned this about John from the submission for the Packers Fan Hall of Fame, but he was the man behind the ambulance known as the Pulse of the Pack at the Packers tailgates.
Yeah, that's correct. And I think that was actually his second ambulance that they had. the first one they got, it was really nice, but then they kind of went through that one. That one kind of fell on hard times, and it wasn't worth fixing. So then they finally decided they got even better one, and then they had it all repainted. Him and his nephews, and my sister was involved in that. And it was completely set up with coolers on the side, pull-out coolers, TV inside. I mean, it was pretty impressive.
Max, tell me about your father as a man, outside of his Packers fandom. What kind of man? Tell us about John Brosig.
Well, I think the big thing about him, and it ties right into him as a Packer fan, he was such a welcoming individual. And you go to games, and of course you have fans booing other fans. Dad never booed another fan. He'd always invite rival fans to the tailgate party, give them a cocktail, and when they traveled. But that was Dad. The bigger the party, the better. I mean, some of their tailgates were over 100 people, and then it was invite only, and then it was, well, there's an A list and a B list. If so and so drops out, then maybe you can come. It was like a kind of like the Oscars or the Emmys with a guy like him. But that was really kind of the guy he was. He wanted to make people feel welcome.
The Packers Fan Hall of Fame finalists are in. The voting is now open. You can go and read all of these submissions and vote at packers.com. We're talking about one submission, John Brosig out of Pound, Wisconsin this morning, talking to his son, Max. Now, I know in 2006, John was diagnosed with kidney cancer and then pancreatic cancer in 2024. Now, how did that affect his love of the team in terms of still getting to the games?
Well, even back in 2006, which was kind of a fluke that he even found out that he had it. But anyway, anytime he would go to the doctors, whether it was back in 2006 or with his current one, he was always looking at the schedule. Like with the recent pancreatic cancer, he would cancel, chemotherapy because there was a Packer game coming up, because he knew that how the chemo would affect him and kind of knock him down for 4 or 5 days. He's like, I don't want to go into the game feeling under the weather, so we'll just kind of push that one to next week. And the doctors and the nurses, they kind of laugh like, whatever you want to do. But his goal was to get to his 60th game, or his 60th year this year for the first game, and he did that. And I think we did 4 games, and there were so many people that helped make it possible. Whether it was the Packers, some of his great friends, especially the Clements and the Wallers, that from a logistics perspective and transferring of tickets, and so.
Wow. Well, Max Brosig, thank you for joining us this morning, telling us about your father, John, and his love of the Packers. Really, thank you for taking the time out and sharing that story with us today.
Yeah, I really appreciate getting it out there. I mean, there's a lot of deserving fans, but obviously our family is biased towards Dad because, it's over 60 years and the thousands of people that he influenced coming to the game. And I got to give a shout out to my mom, because there's no way that a guy could go do what he did if she didn't, keep the home fires burning and get help so much with the tailgate parties and the travel and all the other stadiums and stuff. So, but I do appreciate you guys taking the time.
Absolutely, Max. Thank you. The Packers Fan Hall of Fame finalists are in. The voting is now open. You can check out packers.com. You can read all of these submissions. You can see who's already in the Fan Hall of Fame. A lot of legendary fans out there. And you can vote now for your favorite, the one you think is most deserving to get into the Packers Fan Hall of Fame.